Speaking about mediation, especially in contrast to litigation, we tend to think of mediation as the non-adversarial approach to conflict resolution. Now, let's understand a few things. An adversarial approach to conflict sees the resolution of that conflict as a prize, and the negotiation and the process toward attaining it as combat. The tougher and more aggressive negotiator wins, and the more conciliatory one loses. No matter what anyone says to you, that is central to the concept of adversarial conflict resolution. That is why a very brilliant litigation lawyer is also known to be aggressive, many times even rude. Have you ever watched World Wrestling Federation on TV? You see the wrestlers, they come in, they're looking fearsome. They put on things and they have names. This one, the terrible. That one, the destroyer. You know, it all speaks aggression. And we may think it applies only there, but in very many ways, in the adversarial approach to conflict resolution, the same thing applies. Furthermore, the adversarial approach also lends itself to competition between the negotiators. So there's no, you don't cooperate. You are competing. In fact, according to the Oxford Dictionary, the adversarial approach involves or is characterized by conflict or opposition. It is a competition, and the rules are set by the laws of evidence and the relevant court rules of procedure. However, we also recognize that it is not every way of resolving conflict that is adversarial. However, this is not the main or only distinction from mediation, although there's a tendency to feel so. And this is likely because of where we are coming from, the court system, advocacy, even these days arbitration. But the point I want to lay down today is that it is not every non-adversarial method that can be called mediation, and mediation is not the same as every non-adversarial mediation, maybe not adversarial method. So what I'm saying in effect is that mediation is unique. It is unique. It is distinguished from other forms of conflict resolution in that, number one, no matter how you put it, no matter in what context it takes place, submission to mediation is voluntary. There may be few or no options. You may find that in the circumstances, that is what pays. But the prerogative to submit to it still remains with the party or parties. Secondly, in mediation, in genuine, authentic mediation, the responsibility for the successful outcome resides in the parties. That responsibility and the relevant power is not and has not and cannot and should never be delegated, or in some instances even abdicated to a third party. As a matter of fact, the thing about the so-called adversarial methods, whether it be litigation or arbitration or any of the hybrids, is that the parties actually are hiding a reluctance, an unwillingness, sometimes just, should I say, I don't want to say laziness, but it's like we'd rather let someone else take the decision. I don't want to take the responsibility for it. Mediation does not allow that. There is no judgment or decision of a third party, it is not merely conciliatory, it is truly consensual. And in that sense, we have to draw a distinction between it and what obtains in many traditional systems in many ethnic groups, where parties submit either to the ruler or to the king or to the chief or to the elders, a panel of persons, whether in the family or in the community, who have been set up to look into it. In fact, many Christians will tell you that, Solomon was a great mediator. And I say, no. Whenever the responsibility, wherever the decision is imposed or recommended by a third party, it may be conciliation, it may be peacemaking, it may be bridge building, it may be the settling of a quarrel, but I submit, it is not mediation. The closest those things come to authentic mediation is that the parties in those processes are encouraged to embrace its outcome and to submit to it willingly and peaceably. The decision of the forum is binding and will be enforced, even though any such enforcement rarely happens, as other values and principles encourage compliance. But we still must understand that this is not authentic mediation. What I'm saying is that just as we have evolved from riding mules and cats to using tractors and other should I say, industrialized, mechanized methods, as we move from riding horses to driving cars, and from driving cars to fuel-free vehicles, we need to move from those traditional forms into authentic mediation, which I believe should be the norm for the present times. And when we begin to do that, it raises its own challenges, because that means people have to be trained, not just to learn to do give and take or do reality testing and things like that, but the skills now have to really be properly honed, because there is a difference. That difference must be emphasized, and that is what is going to bring mediation into its place as a profession that will go forward and will be the next stage. Just like we moved from hand utensils to industrialized agriculture, we're going to move from those village councils in the way they are now into what I'd like to refer to as authentic mediation. And it will be fully professionalized. Its standards will be very clear and distinct. It will be very difficult to imitate or compromise them, because the principles are clear. For now, they are not. And that's why it appears as if the place is flooded with persons. I do not mean to disrespect any of the persons who are doing this, but I suspect that there's still a large number of persons who are trying to mediate, but actually those forums in our societies, in our communities, are not mediation. They may offer conciliation, they may offer reconciliation, they may offer peace, but there's something about mediation in its authentic form that also results in the empowerment of the parties. Now, I want to drop something, which is that empowerment is actually in itself key to the future development of mediation and to the expansion of its benefits. Just like in mediation, in looking for settlements, we talk of expanding the pie. In fact, this is going to expand the value chain of mediation, and it's going to bring it into its own world altogether. Not dependent on law, not just dependent on just the traditional norms, but having them merely as background, as a stepping stone into its own undeniable place. Authentic